Welcome, welcome. Jamie Hernandez here. Welcome to Soul Healing for the Empathic Entrepreneur. I was having a little bit of Wi-Fi trouble, so we are here live right now. I think it's like 1:20 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Today's topic is productivity and flow for the empathic entrepreneur. Productivity and flow for the empathic entrepreneur. And I think right away when we think about productivity, we have a certain kind of feeling about that. But as I've been talking about, empaths have just a different way of functioning in the world. And, because I've mentioned this before, us empaths tend to feel everything. One important point to understand in being productive is that we need a somatic container to allow us to, with the way we function with our physical somatic body, the thing that we are utilizing here in the world, we need a consistent practice, a somatic container to allow us to be able to receive information and to give information. Because when you're empathic, you're constantly receiving information, and you're receiving information from everywhere and everything and everyone, and sometimes you're even merging with other people's energy. So when we receive all of that information, it's important to, because we're receiving it in the physical body, it's important to have a somatic practice. What is a somatic practice? It's simply utilizing our vessel to transmute the energy that is coming in and the energy that is coming out so that it's viable. Because sometimes we can have a lot of energy coming in and we can have all of these downloads and we can have all this creative burst of genius as an empath, but it almost overwhelms the nervous system because it almost becomes too much. And we hear a lot of children these days, or you hear a lot of people these days who have that ability to just kind of very fast thinking, or even we might even call it like attention deficit disorder. But really, sometimes what it is just this capacity to intake so much information that it becomes overwhelming, and it seems like your attention is not able to focus. But it's just because when you're inputting so much, then our focus it becomes overwhelmed. So a somatic practice, number one, is really important so that we can receive the information from our business, from our life, from the world in a way that doesn't overwhelm the system. So that's number one. And we can also give the information. So, if you are in a leadership role and you're an empath, especially we want to break things down from a linear point of view, because when you are a feeler, you tend to kind of think more sporadically. You think more in circles. You think more bigger picture, which is great and which is fine. But also, to give information, we also need to learn how to create that in a linear fashion. So if our mind is overwhelmed and our body is overwhelmed, it's very difficult for us to kind of find, okay, what are we going to say for step number one? What are we going to do for step number two? How are we going to disseminate this information to our team, to our kids, to our own computer, if we're doing work, our agenda, things like that. So step number one, or what's important for productivity and flow for an empathic entrepreneur, is the ability to utilize the somatic body as a way of because we have such a high capacity to take information and give information, is to take all of that energy and make sure that it's viable for us to utilize and viable for us to give. Okay, so that's number one. Number two in productivity and flow is having consistency and congruency. And I know this sounds like it's so obvious, but especially for empaths, everyone that I know, if you are friends with somebody who is very highly sensitive, very highly attuned, and is empathic, and you ask them about their day, I guarantee you, especially if they've been on the healing journey for a long time, their whole day is consistently and congruently moving back into the body, somehow, clearing the mind somehow, and feeling their soul and their spirit somehow. And it's interesting because when you are like a high functioning empathic person, you will see that almost your whole day has those little slots, are already in there, and it's very different for other people who don't have that. So it's like, when I talk to our clients, they'll have like a meditation practice, they'll have a tarot practice, they'll have an ice bath, and they'll have like their morning ritual, and then they'll have their afternoon ritual, and then they'll have their nighttime ritual. And it is so natural for them that they don't even realize that most people that are not necessarily highly sensitive don't have consistency and congruency when getting in touch with their body, getting in touch with their feelings, getting in touch with their soul, getting in touch with their spirit. So consistency and congruency is super important. And the way that you can simply break it down, because it can be overwhelming to have like a billion trillion things that you think you need to do, just think about the one thing. If I every day woke up, what would be the one non-negotiable practice and ritual that I know I would need to do in order to function? For me, it's a somatic practice. It's a practice where I'm utilizing my body, moving my body in a way that gets the energy flowing, allows me to downregulate or activate as I need. So what is that for you? And again, I'm sure you already have so many ingrained in your day-to-day life, you don't even realize it. And if you were to tell people like exactly what you did all day long, most like people who are not necessarily sensitives would just think it's like too overwhelming, right? So empaths need a somatic practice, so they can receive and they can give, and they need consistency and congruency in their practice. So that would mean something daily. And again, most of you all have something daily throughout the day. And it is funny because we're so used to continuing to regulate our system, continuing to kind of like deal with a system that has been intaking so much information and needs to kind of like download and regulate themselves. We don't even realize how many of those we have, right? But here's the thing. We can look at the data, right? And sometimes when we're kind of, what I call it, we fall off the bandwagon and we are feeling out of alignment, we can just simply look at the data, and we can simply look at what are those practices that I do on a daily basis. And for example, if we haven't meditated for the last 3 days or 4 days or week, it's very easy to see, oh, okay, this is why there's less productivity and flow in my life, because I simply haven't been doing that, without necessarily beating ourselves over the head because we haven't done the thing. And that's where I think on an emotional level, which will get us to the next thing, is on an emotional level, we can unconsciously, our egoic structure can try to beat us up for not being this perfectly spiritual practice person who has all of the perfectly implemented practices. So when we, from a productivity standpoint, just simply look at the data, look at literally our calendar and see like, ooh, wow, okay, I've been practicing this, this, and this, and ooh, that's creating an outcome where I feel more balanced, where I feel very energized at work, where when I'm showing up and doing, administration things or working with my team or my clients, ooh, I feel, pretty, clear and energized and present. And if we are not feeling that way, we can just simply look like, oh, okay, wow, okay, this week, this month, or this year, life is happening, because we all know in life, it is filled with unexpected things, People get sick, people pass away. There's different things that happen or you get sick in your business, that is very easy for you to say, okay, well, obviously I haven't necessarily been practicing because I've been, taken over with other things, which, by the way, is actually the best time to practice, when life is actually full with a lot of things going on in your life. So I'll skip to number 5. Number 5, this is why this is important. We need, as empathic entrepreneurs, to we have to process our emotions on a regular basis. Because, as a sensitive, as a healer, as a coach, we experience the world through our emotions. We experience other people's emotions. We experience things very deeply. We experience our pain. We experience our beauty from the depths of our soul. So it's so important to have a place or a time or a regular schedule to be able to process those emotions. And, the way that emotions run through us is, one, through the body, right? There's that cellular memory, that makeup, that are any emotion that you can think about. If you think about it right now, your body right away knows it. And some of us have what we call, everyone has a kind of a favorite emotional home. It could be worry, it could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be, so look at that, because on a regular, because we feel so much, we want to be able to process emotions. And we do that through the body, we do that through clearing the mind, and we do that energetically. So if you were to work with me, those are the 3 levels that we're constantly working with, through the physical body, through the clarity of the mind, and through mastering our energy. So I skipped around a little bit, but number 3, and it relates to this number 5, number 3, as an empathic entrepreneur, in order to be productive and go in the flow, we have to have a business language that includes and considers emotions. We have to have a language that considers, because here's the thing, especially when we're moving through strategy in our business, whatever we're doing in our business, whether we are working with a client, whether we are preparing something in our marketing, whether we're looking through our financials, whether we're talking to our team, we are constantly feeling our emotions. So that has to be part of the conversation. That has to be part of the business language, right? Because we're very hyper aware of how we feel in relationship to life in our business. So if all of a sudden we're having a certain, let's say, discussion with our teammate, and the way they're speaking to us or the way they're responding is triggering. Not that they're a trigger, or is triggering. Or something is happening in your business with your clients or with your marketing or things like that, or on social media. We are going to have an emotional reaction. We are going to, everyone has an emotional reaction, but empaths tend to actually be aware of our emotional reaction to life. And so as we do business, we have to have a business language that actually considers our emotions. So for example, and we're like, okay, team, quarter number 1 was great. We had great sales. Keep on doing it. Great. There's a certain emotion. Quarter number 2, guys, this quarter has really dipped. Our sales has gone down 50%. Such and such, this is not working. We have an emotional reaction, right? So yes, there's going to have to be business strategy to implement alongside, what's the word? course correct. That's the word. Course correct and decide and implement what to do. For example, when sales are down, which always happens up and down, and seasons. But we're also going to have to address how that makes us feel, or how we're processing that, because as much as we don't want that to necessarily be running the show, we do have to have a language that addresses it, and a practice that keeps us in a place where the emotional side of us are not necessarily making decisions. I'll give you an example. You know, when you have a team, there's a lot of tasks that they do, right? And as a visionary of your business, you're constantly looking at what's going on in your business, and you're constantly course correcting to improve what's going on, right? But sometimes your teammate are just doing the task, and they're doing the task, and they're doing the task every single day. And all of a sudden, if you kind of like just nitpick, or you just talk about something that, like, let's say task number 25 on their list, and you talk about how to improve it, and how to evolve it, and how to course correct, because it's not necessarily giving us the outcome, we can have an emotional reaction to that, right? Or if we ask our teammate to do something, and then we realize, oh, it's not exactly the way we want, we'll have an emotional reaction to that. So we need to address that. Otherwise, it starts building up in our system, and it can lead to resentment, or it can lead to distraction, it can lead to unfocus of what we want to do. So having a spoken language in business that considers emotions for empaths is super important. And I think it's wonderful in all, for everyone, but especially if you're an empathic entrepreneur, we have to consider our emotions when we talk about our business, and learn how to balance, right? So that we're not making decisions solely from an emotional standpoint, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it has to have a balance between our emotional intelligence center, our cognitive intelligence center, our mental intelligence center, and our physical body intelligence center. So if those are out of whack, and it's completely only emotional, which sometimes can be a good thing, because all of a sudden we're really listening to the call of our heart. But sometimes it also can work against us, especially if it's from a place where we are being triggered by the external world. All right. When you're an empathic entrepreneur, this is point number 4 for productivity and flow. It's important to work with your top priority, because here's the thing. If you give an empath like a list of 20 things to do, they haven't even done it, and they're already overwhelmed, because they know what it feels like to have to do all of those things. So again, we feel first before we think, or before we implement. So what's important for empathic entrepreneurs is to understand what your top priority is. And let's say you do have a list of 25, understand, well, what is the priority? And can I kind of like, if I just get that 1 or 2 things done, then I know. And we base the priority based on what is most profitable, and what is most profitable energetically and spiritually. This is what I work with all my clients, is that we always want to do the next most profitable action. Because there are so many things we can do in our business, but the very first thing, especially if you're starting out, or if you are having many years of not necessarily making the income that you want, then you need to consider what is the next most profitable action, right? And sometimes it's not what we think, and oftentimes we complexify this step. So if you were to work with me, we just consider very simple things to do something more profitable, to have cash injections quicker and bigger cash injections in your business, and also do it in a way that our nervous system does not get overwhelmed. Okay. So, what is your next most profitable action, and your next most spiritual and energetic action? Because if you're for example experiencing burnout, then your next most profitable action might be just to take a nap and then come back to your business, or come back to your business when you have fully healed. Otherwise, it's just going to be coming from this place where you're not fully using the viable energy that you can. Okay. So, point number 6, accountability. If we want to have productivity and flow as an empathic entrepreneur, because we need all those things, those places to have a somatic practice, to be consistent and congruent, to have a place where we can speak a business language that considers emotions, where we can work with our top priority, where we can process emotions on a regular basis. All of those things require accountability, right? So you want to be able to work with somebody when we're implementing in our business, work with somebody that you are accountable to. Yes, it's important to be able to be accountable to yourself, but we all know, when somebody is watching, when somebody is cheering us on, when somebody is kind of like monitoring what's going on in our business and in our life, just in general, we tend to our output and our ability to implement becomes much greater, right? It's like if you ever worked with a personal trainer, or as somebody's giving you a private therapy session, or if you worked with a yoga teacher who just stuck with you for like the 1 hour instead of like the 60 students or whatever in their class, right? So accountability keeps you in the flow, because when 2 or more people have they understand the vision, and they also understand, because when you're the visionary of your business, when you are running your business, you're so close to it that it can be just very emotional and overwhelming. But when you have somebody who can, like, especially when you haven't processed your emotions, or you're working and you're what's the word? You're acting from this very emotional place. We sometimes need that accountable partner or mentor to say, okay, what is your top priority again? What is your most profitable action? Okay, so, I just actually sent a voice message to one of my clients today who is doing great, posting on social media, but is forgetting, like, what is the purpose? Yes, okay, we can be productive and we can be out there, but like, what is the purpose of your social media marketing, right? And where are we leading people to? Is it going to the next most profitable action? Because I always say, like, you can promote a $10 class and a $1,500 program, and it's going to require the same amount of energy, same amount of time. Maybe the mindset will be different, but the hours and the time and the actual effort are the same. So there's an example of, like, what would be the next most profitable action: to continue to only promote your $20 class, drop-in class, or to also promote your $1,500 class. And then again, because you're a solo, then once you start, whatever, it could be, people charge from $1,500 to $3,000 to $5,000, it's your choice, right? But we have to kind of consider, okay, so what would be the next most profitable action? And if I do charge more, and then I want to continue to implement more things, then I can hire somebody on my team. Do you see? So, like, we want to start to consider, what's our next most profitable action, and having that kind of accountability when you're kind of like, okay, because sometimes what happens is we kind of make the mistake of understanding, well, when you're selling something that's a little bit more of a higher price point, it's going to take often a longer time, right, than a $10 drop-in class, right? So having that accountability to stick to that vision, right? So as your coach, that's one thing that I would constantly do, and not based on what I want, but what you tell, what your truth comes out and what emerges. Because here's a beautiful thing about having accountability or having a coach is your deepest truths and desires, your biggest, most audacious goals, you can have a conversation with somebody who holds you accountable. And then it starts to make it real, right? Where it's like when you start to admit to other people what it is you want, then okay, it's not just you hoping and praying. It's like, oh, okay, now other people can hold you accountable to that, because we all do it. It's very easy to have these big goals and dreams and not necessarily do the actions to get there. So let me recap. Productivity and flow as an empathic entrepreneur is a topic. Point number one, us empaths need a somatic practice because we're constantly receiving an abundant amount of input and energy at all times from our business, from our life, from life in general. And so we need to utilize the soma, which is our physical vessel, as a way of processing all that energy coming in and also being able to give it out. So that, when you have, I've had quite the full week. And the other day I came home, I went to a very sad experience in the daytime. And then I came home, it was 10 o'clock at night, and my daughter comes to me and she's like, oh, I don't understand anything on my math quiz. So we were up from 10 to 2 in the morning working on her math quiz. And the whole time, she was sort of like going into panic mode and anxiety. But the whole time, I kept on needing to coach her back to like, okay, what are we doing? What is step number one? We are simply just writing numbers on the paper right now. Nothing's happening. We're in our kitchen, there's no danger. And all that to say is that the reason why I was able to do that at the end of a very long day was because I have a somatic practice to hold my body vessel in a way that my nervous system does not get overloaded, even when life continues to become more and more full. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at that. I'm not saying I never get triggered or never snap or whatever. But having a somatic practice will give us more space to receive and to give in our business and our life. Consistency and congruency. So yes, I could have meditated for many, many decades, but if I don't meditate today or tomorrow, it's certainly going to affect my decision making. It's going to affect the ability I have to produce anything, and the ability to stay in that flow. So having a consistent and congruent daily practice and ritual is super important. And we already talked about this. You probably have so many things that you do on a naturally that you don't even realize is what keeps you productive and in the flow. The simplest things, like maybe you listen to meditation mantras in the morning and you don't realize like just even that changes the frequency and puts you in the flow. Number 3, having a spoken language in business language that considers emotions. Whether we like it or not, as an empath, whatever is happening in our business, whether it's good or bad or whatever, neutral, we will be aware of, or we will feel our emotional state of being. So the two must be paired, because sometimes we just need to implement without necessarily getting so wrapped up with how it feels, right? So it's important to have a spoken language that considers that. And then once that's out of the open, like, I have a meeting with my assistant all the time, and we're always talking about our emotions, because then it frees up that energy to now go and implement the things that we need to do. Does that make sense? Number 4, work with top priority. We're not, I don't believe, we can take we can receive a lot of information, but on a linear point of view, if you stack the things we have to do on a list of like 50, it's too overwhelming. So we always have to consider, like, what is our next most profitable action spiritually and financially. Number 5, process our emotions on a regular basis. Process our emotions on a regular basis, because here's the thing about fear and doubt and joy and whatever emotions we're feeling. The body is still intaking all of that experience. And if we don't continue to allow that the feelings that we feel to be fully felt and then processed and released, then if we are continually feeling a certain way, like doubt or fear or anxiety, it overwhelms the system. So we must be able to process emotions as an empathic entrepreneur on a regular basis in order to be productive and stay in the flow. And lastly, accountability. We have to have some other mirror, some other mentor, some other coach to mirror us back to us, being accountable for our highest potential, and be able to share what it is that we truly want and desire with somebody, and have somebody be able to strategize with you and allow you to take actionable, implementable steps in order to get there. Because we all know, by nature, we're going to take the path of least resistance. So if we're supposed to do, for example, 3 of this kind of thing, but nobody's looking, we'll most likely do 2. Like if somebody says, okay, and I'm not saying everybody's like this, but it's like, okay, do 100 push-ups and you do 80. Okay, let's bring it down. Like, let's say do 10 push-ups and you do 8. You're like, oh, I'm good with that. Or I do 5, and which is fine. But sometimes with accountability, sometimes you'll go for the 10 or you even go for the 12, because you have somebody that you have it's just by nature, right? That it's sort of like if we all didn't have to pay our taxes by April, right, and be accountable for that, nobody would do it. It's the same thing, right? So accountability is very powerful for collapsing and expanding the time and ability to grow in your business. So I hope that was helpful about productivity and flow as an empathic entrepreneur. I hope these points allowed you to kind of consider how you function as an empathic entrepreneur, so that we don't use this egoic structure to beat ourselves up because we're not being productive. Because sometimes productivity means we need to take care of our body. We need to clear our mind. We need to master our energy. And once that's done, then we can get into implementation or execution. And here's where so many of us, we sometimes stay so much in the somatic realm, the healing realm, that when it comes time to execute, we spend too much time, or we didn't implement very close enough to when we freed up the energy. Okay, because we all know, like, if it's the morning now and I've meditated, great. I might have a couple of hours in me to be very, very productive, but by 8 p.m. tonight, I'm not going to have that flow and productivity anymore. So, I forgot what I was saying. But anyway, if any of this sounds good to you. And it's so funny. The reason why I'm having this blank and I find it so funny is last week we talked about your menstrual cycle, and um, I think productivity and flow, your menstrual cycle in relationship to your business. And one thing about your menstrual cycle, which I'm on right now, is that your brain function in terms of short-term memory is not there as much as it is after the end of your the menstrual phase. So it's like these momentary blanks or just this complete like I'm no idea will happen because of that. And if we understand that, if we understand the way we function, I think this is where I was going. If we understand how we function, we won't have this harsh way of beating ourselves up when we feel like we're not creating the outcomes that we want. Because here's the thing that I learned from my mentor just this morning is there's always going to be failure in business. But if we can make decisions quickly and we can execute quickly and we can course correct quickly, and we know that's a regular moment to moment thing, then we won't try to push ourselves from that emotional kind of like abuse that tends to happen when we don't feel adequate or good enough in what we're doing in our life and our business. Okay, we all have that, and this is the one reason why one of the very first things and the fundamental things we do if you were to work with me and if I were your coach is to work on those core wounds, those things, those deep subconscious wounds that hold us back from the life we want. So, I hope this was helpful. DM me and let me know your biggest takeaway. And also, if you are interested in this year I'm creating a somatic container that is going to be a much longer container. It's going to be 12 months. And in that container, we're going to constantly look, consistency and congruency, look at where we're going. Like, what do we want? Have clarity around what we actually want in our life and our business. And continue to look at those things on a regular basis. And have somatic practices that help downregulate and activate us so that when we have to execute, we can. And then get into the nitty-gritty. So the private portion of that training is going to be to strategize. It's like when you're thinking like, oh my God, I have to do all of these XYZs, we're going to come back to your top priority. What's your top priority? What is your next most obvious action? What is your next most profitable thing in your business? And then when shit hits the fan and you need to process your emotions because you're getting so close to the vision of what you want, because whenever you get really close to the vision of what you want, that's when all of your sort of wounds and demons kind of come out. And then we're going to be there for you. I'm going to be there for you to coach you through that. And then again, continue just to inch forward, consistency and congruency towards where you want to go. So if you're interested in that type of coaching, DM me, let me know. I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call, and I'm going to send you an application. So there's going to be a Calendly link somewhere here in this video, or you can simply DM me and let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And on that call, I'm going to send you an application, and I'm going to prepare for the call and see like, where is it that you're stuck? And also, on the call, what we're going to do is going to go right away into where in your body and your mind and your energy is that imprint that is holding you back from where you want to go. So we're going to get right into the work. And because you are a coach, because you're in healing, because you're in transformation, then so many of you are ready for that deeper work. So that is it for me, productivity and flow as an empathic entrepreneur. I want to hear your biggest takeaways. Let me know in the comments. And I will see you all next week here in the Soul Healing for Empathic Entrepreneurs Facebook group. Thanks, everybody. Bye.